was one of the passages of God's Word when I really began to understand that in life we're always seeking to set priorities. And having grown up in the church, I was always taught that these are going to be your priorities. Number one, God would be your priority. That would be the first one. That's what I know God before you. That's a no-brainer. As a little boy in church and Sunday school, that God was first. But as I became an adult, I realized there was a whole lot more things going on in life. And so I began to try to understand what would my priorities be. And somebody said, well, these should be your priorities. And I listened to them. They said, number one, you should, if you're married, you should make your spouse your second priority to God. And then after your spouse, your children should be in that kind of third priority. So now I've got God, I've got my spouse, I've got my children. And then they said the fourth thing you should have is you should have church as a priority. And I loved church. That really wasn't a problem. And then the next one was going to be job, that you needed to be responsible, you needed to earn the bacon for your family. And so now I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to balance all those things. And then finally they said, now you can add recreation in. So I go, okay, I've got this right? Number one, I've got God. Number two, I've got my wife. Number three, I've got my children and my family. Number four, I have the responsibility of church. And then number five, I have my job. And then number six, I have my recreation or my free time. And one of the things that I discovered was those things all became a huge burden to me, because I could never figure out if I was doing it the right way. In other words, if something came up in terms of my job, but my wife was saying, can we spend time together? And my boss was saying, but we need you, and you're going to get a paycheck at the end of the week, right? And so I was always trying to figure out how to balance all of these priorities, and it became such a burden to me. And then I really began to understand what Jesus said in Matthew 6:33. Would you read this with me? He says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. In other words, when we put the kingdom of God, when we put it first, we can trust God to help us to bring balance to everything else. And so what we're going to be looking at today, what I'm going to be challenging the students that you come to Bible college with, is these 5 things. And then starting next week, we'll take them one each week and go into them a little bit more in depth. So let's look at the first one thing. And it is that one thing I ask. One thing I ask. You have some notes in your bulletin. We'd encourage you to take notes as you go along. The one thing that I ask. Now this is something that came from the heart of David as he was the king over Israel. And he said this in Psalm 27, verse 4. He said, one thing I ask of the Lord, this is what I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Students, church, those of you who are gathered here today, I ask you this question. What is it that you are seeking after? What is it that you are pursuing in life? What is the reason that some of you are pursuing a degree from a Bible college? Is it so that you can have another notch on your belt? Is it so you can have something to put in a frame and hang on the wall? I was asking this morning and doing a little bit of a survey, and I asked people this question. I walked around and I said, do I look smarter? Do I look smarter this morning? Because if I do to you, then the old saying isn't true anymore, and that is you can't fix stupid, right? So apparently you can at least dress stupid up. But what is the reason that you're pursuing your degree? What is the reason that you are doing it? David says, the one thing that I ask is that I would dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In other words, God first. His presence. I'm pursuing the presence of God. I meet so many people that are so doggone smart with things from the Bible. So much smart. But they know so much more than I know. But it seems to me sometimes they get so heavenly minded that they are no earthly good. the Christian life is about the pursuit of God's presence. Now you're going to go, wow, God's omnipresent, right? So he's always here. And he is. He's with us in this room. We're with him right now in this room. Though we do not see him by faith, we know that he is here. And he has his attention on us. But oh my goodness, anybody that gets to stand on this platform and look out over a congregation knows that our attention is not always on him. So students, I encourage you to make the pursuit of God's presence your passion, just as it was David. The second one is this, and that is one thing you lack. One thing that you lack. Now, there's a story in the Gospels where Jesus encounters what's called the rich young ruler. What we know is that he was young, and that he was rich, and that he had some kind of power or authority. Now, that was what I was taught growing up, was what life was all about. Life was all about getting more money, more possessions, and having more power. And Jesus encounters this young ruler who comes to him and says, "Good teacher, what must I do to have salvation? What must I do to have eternal life?" And Jesus quotes him some of the 10 Commandments. He says, "Well, number one, he says, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't bear false witness, don't steal, don't defraud, and honor your father and mother." And the rich young ruler goes, "Wow, God, been there, done that, got the closet full of t-shirts on that one." And Jesus says, "But one thing you lack." He says, "Go and sell all that you own. Go and sell all that you own and follow me." Look at that verse, Mark 10:21. Read it with me. Jesus looked at him and loved him. "One thing you lack," he said. "Go sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me." Let me ask you something this morning. What is your priority when it comes to possessions? Now, I'm not just talking about that which is in your clothing closet, the home that you own, the car that you may drive, the cell phone that you. I'm not talking about those kind of possessions, because we can boil all of our possessions down to three things. We can boil it down to our time. We possess a certain amount of time. We possess a certain amount of talent. God has given us some abilities in life, and we possess treasure. We possess money. We possess things that are currently in our care and our stewardship. What is your attitude towards that which you have? Your possessions, your time, your treasure, and your talent. I met a man years ago when I was serving as youth pastor. And this man had walked, we were selling fireworks in a tent to raise funds for the youth group prior to the 4th of July. And this man comes wandering in the tent, and he's carrying a styrofoam cooler with him. And when he gets there, there's a couple of things apparent. One was that I'm not sure he actually owned what was in the styrofoam cooler, because he had steaks. And we were set up in front of what was Albertson's supermarket with our tent and stuff, and he comes wandering in with that. The second thing that was very apparent was he was drunk as a skunk. I mean, he smelled so bad. But we began to engage him in conversation. His name was Bob Harrington. And Bob Harrington was trying to sell us some steaks. He said, "We're going to grill out later. We'll sell you these steaks." And I'm just basically going, "No, actually we're going to be here all day. It's hot. They'll melt," and stuff like that. And so we carried on a conversation for a little while. And after a while, the youth that were with me that day, they kind of gathered around. They began to talk with Bob, and we began to have some conversation. And at some point, I felt the Lord saying, "Just give him some money. Just give him some money." And so I reached in my wallet and I pulled out a $20 bill. And I handed it to him. And he handed it back. He said, "No," he says, "I don't want to take your money." And I said, "Well, would you let us at least pray for you?" And he was still so stumbling drunk when I made that offer. But our youth, they gathered around and we laid hands on him and we prayed for him. And somewhere during the prayer, because when we said amen, this man went stone cold sober. It was just the most unbelievable thing. So I got to know Bob Harrington through all of it. In fact, you're going to think this is really totally weird. Bob Harrington was trying to travel back from Fort Lauderdale to come up and speak to our youth one time. He was attacked in Stewart, and he was beat to a bloody pulp for the few possessions that he had. And when he got to Vero Beach, he got to the hotel room, and he died in the hotel room that night because the emergency room at the hospital just kind of looked at him and said, no, he's fine, and sent him on. And I had Bob Harrington's ashes in my office to remind me of this one thing. I was sitting and talking to him one day, and this man had absolutely nothing. And I continued to try to offer to help him financially, and he just would not take it. Finally, he said, Pastor, the reason I don't want to take your money is he said, when I lost everything, he was an engineer by trade. He was an educated man, college degree. He said, when I lost everything, when I lost my family, when I lost my house, when I lost my job, when I lost everything except the clothes on my back, I realized that all I had was Jesus. That was all that was left. And he said, when I realized that all I had was Jesus, I realized that's all I needed. It was all that I needed. And I remember, Bob, from that. And so, what are you doing with the possessions that you have? And you hear this word that Jesus says, you know, that above everything else is going to be Him. The third thing is this, that one thing is necessary. One thing is necessary. One thing that I ask, one thing that you lack, and one thing that is necessary. And again, we go to the encounters that Jesus had with people. This time, Jesus is hanging out in the home of Mary and Martha. And Mary is very busy. You know, she's got a guest in her home, and she's doing everything she can to make the house look right. You know, she's doing probably what any of us in this room would do. You know, if I told my wife Jesus is heading to the house right after church today, honey, she would head out. She would go home, and just like when we had people over from the church, you know, that's when our house was really spotless clean, and she would be preparing a meal. And so that's what Mary is doing. Now, there's nothing wrong with what Mary is doing. But Martha is just sitting at the feet of Jesus. And Mary is kind of upset with her sister, and she goes in and she goes, don't you see all I've got to do? There you are, just sitting around. And Jesus corrects Martha. Did I get those out of the word? Mary and Martha. Yes, Martha is in the kitchen. I got it down. I realize that. Yeah, you're right. I can't get stupid sometimes. Mary and Martha. You know, Martha's in the kitchen. Mary is at the feet of Jesus. And Jesus speaks to Martha. Look at what he says. He says, Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things. But only one thing is needed. And Mary has chosen what is better. And it will not be taken away from her. I would challenge the students today, if you're coming to Bible college, and I could challenge you with this one thing, it would be to this, that we need to grasp what it means to be, not just what it means to do. We were created as human beings, not human doings. And Mary chose to just be with Jesus. And sometimes I believe that in our Christian walking, in our Christian life, we think it's all about the doing and not about the being. And I would challenge you with that. You know, in the church in Ephesus, there were some powerful words in the book of Revelation that Jesus spoke to that particular church. And he held them accountable for one thing. And that one thing that he held them accountable for, he had some good things to say about it. But he said this, he said one thing. He says, but you have forsaken your first love. But do not mistake the first love that you had in your life, because it wasn't that infatuation that you had in grade school with somebody who just looked doggone good, or in high school, that girlfriend, boyfriend. That was never your first love. I'm sorry, your spouse is not your first love. Jesus is your first love because he loved you before you even knew or heard of him. And he loves you today first. He chose you, and we need to remember who our first love is. And we need to remember the one thing that is necessary. Mary chose Jesus and to receive his love and to offer him her love. And so one thing is necessary. The fourth one is this, and that is one thing that I know. And again, we're going to go back to an encounter with Jesus. It's one thing that I know. Jesus has healed a blind man. And now this blind man can suddenly see. And the Pharisees and those who were trying to track Jesus tried to use this incident of this healing to track Jesus and to arrest him for wrongdoing. And so they're going to this guy's parents are going to this guy and they're saying, what did he do? What did he do? And look how he replied. John 9:25 says he replied, whether he, speaking of Jesus, is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. You see, students, church, we have a tendency in all of our relationships to forget what has been done for us. We have a tendency to look at our relationships and more treat them with, well, what have you done for me lately? We tend to treat our relationships with that, and we forget what God has done for students. I encourage you with all I can not to forget that, because the reality is that through salvation, Jesus has made us more than conquerors. Jesus has taken us who were victims to sin, and he has made us victors over sin. We have become, according to what is said in the book of Revelation, those who have overcome, it is said, they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. See, when we stand before anybody, the only thing that we can claim to fame is never going to be the accomplishments that we've made in life. It's not going to be the awards. It's not going to be how much money that we put aside for retirement. When we stand before people, it's not going to be about the titles that we have or the power that we have. It's not going to be how many people loved us, how many people clicked on like on our Facebook comment or page. It's not going to be about any of those things. It's going to be about one thing, and that is Jesus. It is the only thing. It is the only thing that you and I would have in life to offer anybody else that would have any consequence in their life. As we were sharing over at JC Beach yesterday with some people, I began to realize, as I was going out on the boardwalk and I was just handing out some cold water to people, and it was surprising to me how many people just absolutely even rejected the cold water, because we're living in a culture and a society, they don't know what's in that water. They don't know who I am. And I became disappointed that they wouldn't even take my water. And I began to realize I have something greater than water. I have the bread of life, Jesus. I have this wellspring of living water, Jesus. That's what we have to offer. And we cannot forget, like the blind man said, I don't know, but I do know this one thing. I was blind, but now I see. And then finally, students, I want to challenge you with this last one, and that's one thing I do. One thing I do. The Apostle Paul, writing to the Philippian church, in Philippians 3:13 and 14, I want us to take a look at that. He said, and read with this, Philippians 3:13 and 14. Brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind, straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. to live by. Beginning with forgetting what is behind. Because immediately I'm thinking of my past. And how many of you all know that your past is always trying to catch up with you? And unlike that dog, it usually catches you. And you're thinking about your past. You're thinking about what you've done to others. You're thinking about what others have done to you. Paul says, forget all of that. But I think it's beyond that. In a moment, students, you're going to walk across this stage and you're going to receive a diploma. And then you're going to walk off that stage and this is behind you. It's just going to be a moment of taking that diploma. And I would say to you the same thing. Forgetting what is behind you now. Forgetting what is behind you now. The pressing forward toward the goal that we have in Christ Jesus. Do you know that you can attend college for the rest of your life? I won't name the name in the room, but we have somebody here who's attended college a lot. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he became an engineer, and then he became an attorney, and now he's serving as an engineer, and still likes to talk about the law stuff. In fact, when he graduated from law school, he called me. They were living up in Gainesville or Orlando, somewhere up there, and he called, and he says, I just passed the Florida bar. He said it was like having a lobotomy and an enema at the same time. What I'm saying to you is what has been accomplished in your life is great, but God has greater things for you. It's not about the inside here of the learning, it's about the outside there of the living. And so we look at this verse and we strain forward, we push forward. Paul says he pressed on, forgetting what is behind, pressing on for the goal for the prize, for which God has called me heaven in Christ Jesus. Can I just say to you, the greatest asset that you will carry forward in your character is humility. And so I'm encouraging you, stay humble. Remember, God is not done with you yet. Like the old children's song, God is still working on you. And the good news is that He who began that work in you at the point of salvation, He will continue that work until it is complete. And He will do it. And though you won't be handed a diploma to hang on your wall, you'll be handed a reception into the presence of God, which is where we begin to all our life to seek after Him.
Hallelujah.
We pray for you. Father, thank you for this opportunity to share your truth and your word. God, you are the one thing. You are the one thing, Jesus, you're nothing else in life matters. Everything else icing on the cake. But God, I pray for each of these students, and I pray for everyone who is here today. Whether they